And let's kick off. So, yeah, welcome everyone, and a huge thank you to everyone for giving up their time to be with us today. So over the next hour, we really do hope that we can give you some meaningful insights. And just before I introduce you all to our panelists, I thought it would be useful to give a bit of a framework to the thoughts behind today's Business Summit. And literally, it started as a conversation a couple of days after we all found ourselves in second lockdown, saying that the mood of businesses seems really different this time. Now, on the one hand, that's very logical. We're less shell-shocked. We've implemented a huge amount of change since March. So what learnings can we take from that? But also the mood amongst businesses, amongst all of us, seems to be that where we can, it's business in as normal a fashion as we can. And even in the sectors where that hasn't been possible, the mood seems to be, okay, how do we plow forward? How do we plan for 2021 to grow ourselves out of this? So we thought it would be useful to bring together a cross-sector panel and hear insights and takeaways that may be useful to all of us. Now, we've been absolutely, completely overwhelmed by the response to the summit. We had nearly 100 people registering. So today, it's not meant to be a deep dive into any one sector or any one topic, but more of an overview into insights. And then if there's appetite, we can take the topics, the comments, the conversations from today, and we can run future lives where we do take that deeper dive. Now, running parallel to the summit, for the last 4 weeks, we've been pushing out a business survey asking for views on collaboration. And so please, if you haven't had a chance to take that survey yet, then the next slide that's coming up on the screen, we'll have a link at the bottom, and we'll put the link into the chat. So please do add your voice to the survey, and we'll turn that into a working document that hopefully benefits all of us. So by way of introduction to today's session, we thought it'd be useful just to share a couple of the early findings. Now, collaboration, along with COVID and Trump, we're definitely not going there, but they have all been the buzzwords of the last few months. So no surprise that the survey shows that nearly 2/3 of businesses out there believe that collaboration is more important than ever. But interestingly, nearly half of people, 44%, said that they collaborate with colleagues and they collaborate with their own internal teams more than usual. And that's perhaps interesting from two aspects. Number one, it suggests that there's an awful lot more we could be doing within our own teams in order to grow. So how do we take and implement that? And also, how do we then collaborate more outside of our own organization? And again, nearly 2/3 of people said that they've actually started not just to collaborate outside of their organization, but cross-sector even more than before lockdown. And I think that's interesting because at a time when we're hearing all of the time, it's harder to collaborate now that we're not in offices together. There seems to be an awful lot more of it happening. So we'll use that as a bit of a framework as we go along. But now if I can take you back to our panelists, and just so that we're all friends in the room, a quick hello and a massive thank you. And if you haven't yet met the panelists, a quick round the room. So we have Dr. Sally Basker from Exeter Science Park, welcome. Matt Dunn from Nexa Law, Tom Chartres-Moore from Scones, Mark Godfrey from Deer Park Country House, James Court from NatWest, Ben Jordan from Bear Town and Bear Trail, and Andrew Hardwick from Exeter City Futures. I am now going to remove my face from the screen and hand over to my co-host, co-founder, left-hand woman, right-hand genius in the business, Annabelle McCabe. And for anyone who's had a chance to catch up with some of our podcasts, you'll know that Annabelle is the interviewer stroke interrogator part of the duo. But she always manages to do it with a huge smile on her face. So Annabelle and panelists, thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I will be gentle, don't worry. Thanks, Maddie. I'd like to turn to you, Sally, for the first question, if I may. You're at the heart of a collaborative hub and network supporting science and technology businesses. What lessons can you take forward into 2021 about providing a blended physical and digital environment that allows collaboration to thrive?
Okay, so let me start off by saying, as I said just earlier, we've been back in the office since May. We are still in the office supporting our clients. We are still running everything we normally run. So we have our meeting rooms available, our cafes doing click and collect, the whole place is COVID secure. Since March, we've basically run a 150k agile program to make our offices COVID secure. We've had physical changes, digital co-working platform, and that was done in a 3-month period. We, at the same time, we've had a 20,000 square foot building, 6 million pounds that we are in the middle of constructing. We've won some money to construct a new 13,000 square foot building. So inquiry came mid-July, business case by 1st of September. We're expecting to start on site in February and complete next November. We've recruited members of staff, with TUPID members of staff. And I think the lessons that we've learned, first of all, culture, if you want to create culture, far better face-to-face in the office than online. If you want to mentor and coach people, far better in the office than online. If you want to do joint creative work, again, far better in the office than online. And in fact, I can see people here that I've had meetings with. Tom, for example, we've had some fairly detailed looks into some little odd bits of IP law at various points over the summer. If you want to concentrate on stuff, it's probably better remote. We've tried GoToMeeting, we've tried Zoom, we've tried Teams, we've tried, oh God knows, all sorts of stuff. They're all horses for courses. Great pair of headphones is quite useful. Camera's quite useful. We've been trying meeting owls, which are really good fun. But there's nothing like being together, I think. And I think people are social beings. This is lovely to see everybody, but when people are reduced to sort of a few hundred pixels on a screen in a grid, you can't really tell what their body language is, and you miss stuff out. And I think it's quite a transactional approach to doing a lot of things. You have a meeting to do something, finish the meeting, you go on to the next one. I think actually we're missing out on the sort of softer social stuff where some of the niceness happens, where you suddenly find new opportunities, where you can do all of these things. And it's that sort of, that side of things that I think we need. So I think there's a place for both. I think a lot of people are saying maybe a couple of days at home, maybe 3 days in the office, something like that. But yeah, we're still in, and it's still working for us.
That's brilliant to hear. We've had discussions with people actually, and it's those micro connections around the water cooler moments that people are missing. So that seems like in your place of work that socially distanced and under COVID rules and regulations and all of that, those kinds of conversations will be happening, I guess. Those social connections that we gain from workplaces, not just work.
Yeah, except that in our case we've got hot chocolate with lots of cream on top and
That
all the
sounds
rest
far
of it.
better. That sounds much more, especially with the weather at the moment and we're moving towards the Christmas season and winter. That sounds far more preferable. Thank you, Sally. That's great. Andrew, if I can move to you. For Exeter City Future, I know we've had conversations in the past around this topic. For you to achieve your goals, you've got to collaborate with many different businesses across multiple sectors. What would be one key learning you could share with us and the attendees today to ensure a successful collaboration?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, getting it down to one's going to be a challenge because there's lots of things
Sure.
that come in. I'll do my best. You can give me marks out of 10 how I do. You're right. I mean, collaboration is completely central to Exeter City Future's work. I mean, it literally our role in the city is that, and not just businesses and organisations. It's residents and communities and city leaders and politicians as well. So a fairly eclectic and challenging opportunity for us to explore in terms of how we deliver net zero. And bringing it back to your question, I think there's certain strands that enable a collaboration to be successful. I think the starting point is always setting out what is the purpose, what are you looking to achieve, what's the problem, what's the shared goal. And I think if you don't establish that very early, you're probably going to instantly start going wrong because you'll start from a very confused place. Those who are contributing will get a very disjointed view of the direction you're trying to have, heading. So it really is around, setting out what is the shared challenge or outcome we're looking for. Diversity within who you're collaborating with is key. So I think if a collaboration is going to work, you need to make sure you're not just going to people that are like you or think like you, or organisations that necessarily mirror you. I mean, the best collaborations that I've come across, and certainly that eChef have been involved in, have had a real good mix. There is a caveat to that, of course, because if you're not targeted enough in who you're collaborating with, you might never actually find that common goal. So there is a bit of a fine line to walk with that. Within collaborations, there's always a need that there tends to be no right or wrong gilt-edged answer. It's around exploring what are the options we have. So there's always an element of having to compromise. You'll sound and find a perfectly black or white answer. That you tend to find a far bigger collective gain somewhere in the grey area, but involves everyone giving a little to probably gain a lot collectively. And I guess there's some milestones you need to consider in amongst that process of, are we on track? Is everyone's understanding the same? Checking in at the end of the meeting, have we covered what we needed to? Is everyone still on board? Are we still sharing the same vision? Just to make sure that you are heading in the right direction, and that's a collective feeling and you've got the right momentum. Trust, I noticed on your slide, comes into it, absolutely key. And to bring it back to one point, I know I've rattled off probably 5 or 6 there. I think to bring it back to one point, what probably flows through all of that is keeping an open mind. I think if you're really looking for a good collaborative outcome, you need all of those people involved to approach it with an open mind of who I'm going to work with, how we're going to solve this, where we might end up, how I'm going to forge trust by my behaviour, how I'm going to trust other people's intentions. So yeah, I'll bring it back to an open mind at the end. Hopefully that helps frame it from my experience.
Yeah, I think it's a really meaty topic that we could do a whole session on, and maybe we explore that further as we move on with these sessions. So thank you. I know it's difficult to hone it down to one for sure. Drew, I don't know if you're able to hear us. Here he is. Thanks for joining. Oh, you're on mute. Unmute you.
Sorry, Paul, apologies, running late this morning.
That's okay. Drew, if you're able to, I'd love to jump to you now if we can. Mm-hmm. You've just entered a new space of online business exhibitions with the Great British Business Expo with a new business partner. Mm-hmm. Would you have pursued this collaborative opportunity had it not been for lockdown, do you think? And what are the positives around that for you?
No, almost certainly not. And I think really this is something that, I've been talking about a lot recently, is the fact that everybody is starting to realize that collaborations are a much more effective way of working than rather than seeing each other as competitors. For me, having always run the Like Minds Ideas Festival for 10 years as a content-driven piece, rather than a business expo in the way that you guys used to run with Dave Barr. It occurred to me that online you could bring these two things together and see how that would work, with a model that didn't require people. It was a free to attend event, and get as many businesses involved running their own booths and promoting themselves as possible. And we had an absolutely incredible response. Normally with a free to attend event, you'd expect about a 50% dropout, something like that. I mean, that's been my experience in the real world as well as online. Yesterday, we had a 98.7% turnout.
Wow.
It was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, the division of labor worked really well. Mike doing most of the marketing, me doing most of the content. So we have, you have defined roles. Where it doesn't work is where you haven't defined those roles up front, and everybody is someone's doing, well, I thought I was doing that. No, I'm doing that. You should be doing that. Oh, well, if I'd have known that, so you've got to have some structure at the beginning. Unfortunately, we're grown up enough to have done that, and the whole thing was a huge success. So, in fact, we're running it again on March the 31st.
Oh, brilliant! And why do you think the difference is in that take up compared to a face-to-face or other online events?
I suspect it was partially that we are in a lockdown again, so people are around. I mean, I got involved in online conferencing very early back in March, as you know.
Yes, yeah.
And, I ran the lockdown festival in April, and we ran it again in May, and we had 600 people from all over the world. That was the big eye opener for me. That typically.
There's no geographical barrier now, are there?
No, geography is out the window. I get Southwest and Southeast attendees at Like Minds, and for the lockdown festival, we had people from Mumbai and Tokyo, Switzerland, and that culturally just made it all that much
more exciting. Yeah, brilliant.
So moving forward, I mean, I don't see any large scale live events happening next year, to be honest. I think we're going to be in this for the long haul. So even when we do eventually come out of it in some way, shape or form, we'll still do hybrid events. We will still live stream stuff, and involve a third party audience, for want of a better description.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that sounds really positive. So thank you for sharing that. Mark, if I can turn to you now, obviously you have been in undoubtedly the hardest hit sector of hospitality. Have there been any innovations or learnings from within the sector that will help you move forward into 2021? Any positives?
Well, it's obviously been extremely difficult for everybody in hospitality. But we're a resilient bunch. We're an innovative bunch. We're a creative bunch. We want to do our best to make it work, because there's, we get a buzz out of stuff like that. And you can see all of the things that people have been doing, whether it's setting up a shop, takeaway food, takeaway beer, deliveries. And some of these places have never been as profitable because of that. So I think you've got to take opportunity when it's there, haven't you? And you've got to think differently. And businesses have adapted hugely, and they've become much more focused, I think, on collaboration. I think they've been much more focused on communication and much more focused on efficiencies in their business. And a lot of hotels in the Southwest, okay, there's the staycation, there's the VAT reduction, there's the business rates holiday, but a lot of them are posting best profit months ever, in a global pandemic. And you think, crikey, what's going on here? Occupancies of 98%, a much more efficient business model equals more profit. And there's businesses that have said to me, we won't go back. We'll continue with this. So, it's good news that people are learning a new way of working. And it's good news that there's additional profits coming out of it, and hopefully the Chancellor will extend some of those to enable us to get back to investing in our businesses, because people are not currently investing in their businesses, although now you would say is the perfect time to do it when we don't have guests to upset. But money's tight, and we don't know when we are going to be out the woods completely. So you've got to collaborate, you've got to work with your supply chain, you've got to work with the third parties that previously you didn't realize were so important, like our wood pellets for our biomass, things that you just didn't really think about before, and actually, changing from a hotel to a wedding venue 2 years ago was absolutely the right thing. We will be lucky to make 5% of our annual revenue this year. We're still obviously not open. Doing weddings for 15, a complete nightmare for us, because we're refunding money, cash flow. We've gone from a P&L business to a cash business. Doing weddings of anything other than the norm is going to hurt us, because people have prepaid. And, one of the biggest collaborations for us is actually with our clients, because when you've postponed somebody's wedding 3 times, you think of the tail, of the DJ, of the florist, of the cake lady, of all these people that you've got to realign to a new date. It's not just change the
it's
date.
not just as simple as that, is it? No, not at all.
So, but we will all come out of this stronger because of that. We will realize how important communication is. We'll realize how important third parties are. And we will realize that actually we need to become more efficient, because profit is crucial to business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, commerciality is what drives change and moves collaborations forward, isn't it? So, thank you for that. And have you managed to reschedule a lot of the weddings for next year, or have you had to go to 2022 and beyond?
We started seeing postponements into 2021. And at one point we had 165 weddings for 2021.
Oh my God.
As they started dropping this year, going up, we were then open for show rounds, and we've taken an additional 80 new weddings since 14th of July. Majority of that is into 2022. But what we're seeing now is that 2021 numbers are dropping, where people are moving from the spring and early summer because they're very nervous. They're now moving into 2022. What we'll end up with is a normal year next year, but 2022 is going to be phenomenal. I predict a tsunami of weddings and celebrations.
Yeah, absolutely.
The crucial thing is to try and get them all in.
Yeah, absolutely. There aren't enough weekdays or weekends, or there are not enough days in the year physically for you to do that. Oh, thank you very much for sharing that. And I hope that you get back on track sooner rather than later. Very difficult. And Ben, moving to yourself, you're also in a consumer-facing business, which has been at the front end of this second lockdown. Obviously, you've just opened a new venue as part of your business, Beartown. Have there been any positives that you can offer to us and others in your sector that you've experienced from this time? Anything to offer to the panel and the attendees?
Yeah, I mean, echo a lot of what Mark said, but at the same time, I think this has been a really fascinating year. I've only been in business for 4 years, and it's been a really good year for sort of my learning.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of collaboration through people having much more open conversations than we used to. We've got a common enemy, as it were, which is just the environment. So people have been a lot more happy to chat about it. I mean, look at this, for instance. People are sharing much more information than we ever would have done. And people just realise that working together on this is absolutely crucial. I think there's been a massive difference, as you said earlier, between lockdown 1 and lockdown 2. I'm ex-military, and essentially it used to be a shock and awe tactic, and that's what lockdown 1 felt like. It was like, what's happening? We're not used to this. So it was a really big shock to all businesses. No one's been told to close legally. So that is very, very different to this one, where we're more mentally prepared. We're probably more physically prepared as well. And if you'd have said, I think the big thing that's coming out of this, what Mark just said, was the resilience. If you'd have told hospitality businesses that they would be closed for 4 months out of their key months in the summer, you'd be like, absolutely no chance. We'll fold in literally like an empty tracksuit. But actually, I know some have fallen by the wayside, but the majority of businesses have got through and have found ways to get through. So I think the 3 points I've got is resilience, which is I never thought I'd survive a year being closed for 4 months, which is huge for us. And then the second one was adapting. I, for many years, wanted to put in a slot system into the Bear Trail to make us a more economic business, and because the average dwell time is about 3 to 4 hours, but we only allow 1 slot for the day, so it doesn't really work. But this forced us to lower numbers, bring 2 slots in, and is actually we were fully booked for August because we had 10 acres, socially distanced, people could get outside. We actually had, from being right in the hole, we actually had an unbelievable August. I think we did 50% of 2019 turnover in 1 month. So it's like, it's been a massive boom bust year, and it's trying to like mentally control that. So that's something which we've massively taken away from. And like Mark said before, we're going to roll that forward because customers have actually enjoyed that slot system more.
Yeah.
It's helped structure their day. So customers and us have kind of, actually this works better, and our reviews are actually better when bringing it down. So yeah, it's been very interesting for that side. And then the other one is lockdown 2. I think a lot of businesses have actually had time to breathe, time to business plan, because how often do you put time in your day during the week to, we all say we want to do it, and take that Friday of big hands thinking, or big, blue sky thinking. But we actually are forced to do this. So we've grown from 6 employees to 20 employees in the last 3 months.
Wow.
We've built a 6,000 square foot warehouse, and then we got 9 days of trading, and we were forced to close. But we just proved our model for those 9 days, and it's actually given us time to tweak it. And we've changed it from 4 slots to 3 slots. All the guys have gone away and obviously had time to think about things, and we're going to come back a lot stronger, even though it's probably not ideal opening an indoor business during a lockdown. Couldn't have been a worse timing if you ever picked it. But taking from it, we've actually had time to plan how the 2 businesses are going to work together.
Yeah.
So for us, the collaboration within the actual organisation has been much, much greater. Like, we've had time to sit down and actually plan, which I think we're normally on the hamster wheel. Everyone has probably experienced the same thing during lockdown, where they've felt like they've actually had time to breathe and figure out where they want to go.
Yeah.
And the last one was our offering too narrow? Were we dependent on you know, an outdoor sunny day where people wanted to get muddy. Pretty much, yeah. So we're looking now at, we've put a shop into the new warehouse, which will enable us to do an online shop. So we've got someone in who's going to run an online shop for us. So that's taking the risk out of the business being dependent on a nice sunny day in August, which, as we know, always rains. So for us, the collaboration within the company, and it's also because we've grown so quickly over the last sort of 2 months, we've had to lean on an external PR company. We've had to lean on our logistics chain being better and how we're going to streamline it all. So we've definitely collaborated more, just through, although we want to do it, but we've been forced to do it. And those new rules and everything that's come into place have actually made us a better business and more efficient, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, for us, it's been a hell of a year.
Yeah.
A lot more staff, a lot more collaborations within the business as well. And I think we'll have an absolute boom with all the networking once we're allowed to go and meet again.
Yeah.
So I think this whole collaboration thing is a really good idea. I think it's great. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Yeah. So taking from that, then it's giving you time to be efficient and streamline your business and your offering and look forward to the future. And like you say, we're all guilty of being in the business and not overviewing it. So I think everybody listening to that will relate to that. So thank you very much. James Court, over to you. I know that
hello.
You've been in the very unique situation of stepping out of your role during the first lockdown, and you must have had a very high level view of the businesses as you were in contact with them throughout that time. What's the mood out there now? What's the difference between that lockdown and this one? And what are your thoughts from a business perspective moving into 2021?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for having me, first of all. Hello, everybody.
You're welcome.
I see some other chat on there. I can't see everybody that's on, but it's great to be here. So I'll just caveat it by saying this is my views and not NatWest views. Everybody knows. I didn't get into any trouble. Yeah, for me, my role obviously, which is all about people, being out and about and being visible and running events and all that stuff, you know, stopped overnight. And I was repurposed along with a lot of my colleagues from around the country. My team covers the southwest and Wales. So obviously we're very spread out, and we were all repurposed into helping out with just the mass trauma that everybody had. And I have to say, those first few weeks, I don't think in over 20 years of banking I've ever experienced or ever will experience anything like it again. Initially, I stood into a role for a colleague who was out of the business, looking after a portfolio of sort of SME businesses. And I remember getting off the phone from a lady who had poured her heart out to me. You know, and we're trying to help them with one of the loans and some of the finance, etc. And I had something like 17 voicemails on my phone to return calls back to other people in those sort of situations. That was the sort of the first story, the first lockdown, and very much us scrambling to deal with that demand. So I think I wrote some things down before this, and some of the guys have actually covered it. You know, I wrote down the word resilience. I think that's been something that I've been blown away by, and I've spoken to businesses from all over the country. I've been blown away really by how people have been able to, and another word that we've all used a lot in lockdown is pivot, diversify, and create a really great online experience. And obviously some of the businesses that have been able to do that, you know, food business is a classic one, you know, talking about how they can suddenly pivot to being able to deliver. And then it's been for them about how do they provide a really great experience for their customer. You know, one of the things that I think for retail businesses that I've seen is how do they create a really great experience for how their customers return items. because it's really great to buy something online, but when you can't just walk into a shop and send it back. So how I think businesses are having to think more about how do they send stuff back? How do you make that really easy for your customer, for your client? How do you provide a really great service, and how do you communicate with your client? How do you provide that care? So when it comes to collaboration, I think although sharing of ideas has been unique, I've personally really missed the personal contact. I've not been able to go out and mix with anybody. It's been a strict stay at home. You know, we don't want you mixing kind of rule to protect you, and obviously to make sure you don't give anything to anyone else and all that kind of stuff. So for me, the classic picking up the telephone has been a key during lockdown. I know we all tend to gravitate to digital technology for communicating like we are now, but just hearing someone's voice down the end of the phone, or getting a voicemail to say how you keeping, how you doing, and staying in touch with a lot of people that way has been good. Turning to businesses, to give you some kind of idea about the demand that's been out there, when the bounce back loan launched and came to the market a few months ago, NatWest, we had, in the first 48 hours, we took over 70,000 online applications.
Wow.
So that gives you an idea of why I was repurposed into internally into supporting that process, and actually I've now been took back part-time again for a second time into dealing with that process, and just helping customers get through this. So the other thing I think that's really important that I've seen is how businesses have looked after their staff, the ones that haven't been furloughed. And I can also say that from my point of view as well, is looking after staff well-being, as well as thinking about your business and the plans for the future and how you drive that forward. Well-being being such an important thing. You know, how do you maintain that? How do you keep your staff mentally strong, and also being empathetic, because everybody's got their own personal situation with children, and you know, young children of different ages, and juggling all that kind of stuff. So that's been really, really important. And having a good positive attitude to retraining. You know, for me, it was real tough to have to step out of something I love and then go into doing something much more administratively driven. But it's about, for me, being, you know, trying to choose to have that right attitude and be grateful for the fact that I've still had a job and been able to actually feel like I've made a difference to those businesses that have needed that support. I know there's very much bash the banker, isn't it, across a lot of the rhetoric on social media, and it's very, even Jeremy Vine had a pop at the bankers the other day, and I wanted to pick up the phone and say, hang on a minute, I've spent hours and hours trying to help businesses here. Not everyone's bash the banker. So that's been a real joy to actually feel like I've supported people through that and been able to make a difference. The last thing I'd like to say is, for businesses, is about planning ahead. Obviously, a lot of these loans and these financial arrangements will start to become repayable around this time next year. Is to really start to build robust financial plans, really connect with your accountant, with your lawyers, talk to those people, those professionals, about how you can really plan ahead with your cash flow, and don't get caught out. That's easier said than done when, for instance, like Mark, you know, who's been affected in ways that, you know, it's hard to comprehend how you keep going through that. And testament to you, Mark, about your resilience. You know, brilliant to hear what you've said.
Thank you.
But plan ahead, you know, as best you can, and be resilient, and think about how you can pivot, and think about how you can create a really great experience for your customer, because that is what will stand you out from the rest when it comes to your returns policy, to your customer service policy. How do you make that feel great online for the customer? I think a lot of businesses are really catching on to that.
I think they are.
The best ones that do that will get retained business.
I think the brands that won't be named and shamed on here, but who haven't treated their staff or presented themselves very well in the press, shall we say, in the first round of lockdown, I think people will vote with their feet and won't enter those premises or those or the shops or pubs or whoever. But I think people will be brand led in terms of how they treated people. So I think that's really important. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, really good advice. Reach out to people and plan ahead, I think, is the key there, and also talking to each other, which goes back to Sally's talking to people at work, and that's the way it works for you. So that's great. Thank you, James. So we're moving now to Tom. Welcome, Tom. We've heard of lots of positives now from the panel about collaboration and the positives, the opportunities that it's created throughout this year. Could you give one piece of advice for all of us that we will need to implement from a legal perspective if we want to really make collaborations work within business?
I like how you're teeing me up for a negative there, Annabelle. So we've had loads of positive. Can we now have the lawyer to tell us what it's really going to be like? It's going to be a whole world of pain. I think James's point about planning for the future is a really valid one. So if in order to look forward, let's just very quickly look backward. Lockdown 1 was horrendous for many businesses, and the whole pandemic has been a horrific humanitarian disaster. There is no doubt about that, and I don't want to dwell on that. But 6 months, some of our clients have certainly been making more money than they've ever made before. We have been busier than we have ever been before. And actually, it has been a catalyst. It has been a breaking down of the social norms for interaction and business practice. And typically, our clients would operate in silo. And they'd say, do what we want to do, not interested in what the clients are doing, not interested in what they're doing. These are our terms. This is how we work. Sod off. And that died on the vine pretty much in March, and that has to be the way. That's got to be the way it happens in the future. There's no two choices about that, because I think the other point about if you don't do that, you're not actually collaborating, and that is, I think, probably the most important point: is, are you genuinely collaborating? Examples of not collaborating are you as a restaurant using Deliveroo. That's not a collaboration. Getting stuff posted on Google. That's not a collaboration. And by the way, why are we seeing TV adverts for Google reviews? Like Amazon Prime needs advertising. People know they've got nothing better to do than watch television, and they can't go out, and they have to have their stuff delivered to their door. These organisations will pose collaborators, but they are the leviathans that don't necessarily need to be ignored, but alternatives need to be found. Like what you've seen over the last 6 months has probably been 5 years of business maturity in a very, very condensed format. So there's obvious the lawyer side of me screaming, say contract. So I will say contract. I'll say bear in mind what the future looks like, regardless of whether it's success or otherwise. How do you control that relationship? If it is going good, I have one client that's a PPE manufacturer. You can imagine how much money they're making at the moment. They're in a lovely position, except they're not, because the contracts with their parties were drafted in 1985. So they have, they're faxed.
Oh.
Fantastic. Doesn't think about what would happen in the event of a pandemic, and they're making more than they've ever done before. So always plan for the positive, as well as the negative, but plan for the positive.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Matthew, you got this. I feel really bad now because I'm going to ask you a slightly negative twist, but let's put a positive spin on it. Matthew, what other examples of pitfalls or to avoid when forging collaborations from your viewpoint as a lawyer?
Yeah, so you're right. The question's quite negative, but I'm gonna spin it the other way around.
I knew you would. You see, that's why I wrote it.
What do you need to do for a successful collaboration, and that will ensure that you avoid the pitfalls? And I think probably what you'd expect a lawyer to say is that there's lots of legal things that you need to do in order to get everything lined up right. But actually, the advice that I would give people is much more practical, and I'd say that a collaboration will be successful when the parties that are collaborating have shared values, where they have a similar outlook on the world. And Mandy shared the statistic at the start, 76% of people, I think, said that trust is the most important element of a collaboration, and you can build that trust by knowing that the people that you're collaborating with feel the same way as you do. And that's something that's really important, I think, for a collaboration to succeed. So the second aspect of a successful collaboration, and therefore avoiding the pitfalls, is to set some goals around what it is that you're each trying to achieve. So what I would always say to someone is, if you're thinking about collaboration, or you're bringing to me a collaboration that you want a view on, it's, what does success actually look like in this collaboration? Why are we doing it? And where do we want it to go? And what does a positive outcome look like? Because if you haven't figured that out, it's going to be really hard to work out whether or not it's something that you actually want to pursue and put time and effort and potentially money into. Which brings me on to the third element of a successful collaboration, which is that you've actually got to commit to it. You've got to commit resources, and that means time, that means effort, that means money, that means people, because often collaborations, they seem like a fantastic idea and there's a lot of enthusiasm about them, and everybody's on board with the values and with the objectives, but then they don't do anything to push it forward. And what happens in those situations is that the collaboration fails. Now, most failed collaborations just fizzle out. They fizzle out because you didn't get the values right, you didn't set the success objectives, or you didn't commit the resources. And that's fine, because you tried and it didn't work, and maybe that was the right thing, maybe it wasn't. Now, it's actually the successful collaborations that are the ones that usually blow up with a big bang, the one where the lawyers take a look at it after it's all gone wrong and say, yeah, hey, what's been happening here? Those are the painful ones. Are usually the ones where you aligned all those three things and it's gone really well, but then someone says, well, we didn't actually figure out at the start how we were going to deliver this and who was going to get what out of it. So that's kind of where the lawyerly advice comes in, beyond the practical advice, and that's to say, well, what structure did you put around it? Was it intended to be a really loose collaboration where we just kind of work alongside each other and see if it went well? Or was it quite a tight collaboration where we were trying to form a legal relationship with a joint venture, for example? We might set up a separate company to push the collaboration forward. And that's the things that need to be front-ended rather than thought about at the end. So the kind of legal things are, what's the structure? How are we going to ensure confidentiality? Do we need to worry about confidentiality? Is that something that's an issue here? We need to think about how revenue is going to be generated. Where's it going to go? Who's going to get what? And then think about who owns what in this collaboration. Who's going to be able to benefit out of this ultimately? Is it going to be one party, the other party, or is it going to be shared, and how's it going to be shared? And interestingly, the thing which a lot of people forget about, but which is actually really important, is how are you going to get out of this collaboration? Is it going to come to a natural end? Is it going to be time limited? Is it going to be indefinite? What happens if one person's business changes? So, what if you have a global pandemic and you are collaborating and you can no longer deliver the thing that you meant to be delivering? How are you going to unpick that? And so, lawyers, of course, are always criticised for looking at the things that can go wrong. I like to always look at the things that can go right, but just have in the background the what question.
Yeah.
What if something changes and it turns out this wasn't quite right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of excitement at the beginning of a collaboration.
Yeah, of course, yeah, everyone's excited to move it forward, and there's a lot of, like you say, I think the first thing really is to then start with the end in mind, isn't it? So you need to be looking ahead and thinking, what do we want to achieve, and make sure that you're all on the same wavelength and you're wanting to achieve the same goals and you've got a similar pathway to get there. You don't all have to be like-minded, but you have to have that in mind in order for it to truly work. And then, like you say, you only need the contracts, everything in place when, unfortunately, things, you know, are not heading in the right direction. But obviously, you've got to be mindful to have them there in order to safeguard everybody, and to also just to map everything out and make sure you are all on the same page, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes back to this idea that if you know what success looks like, then you build everything around that. And what lawyers should be doing, in my opinion, is they should actually be writing that into the contracts they prepare. It doesn't need to be a document that, you know, sets out, you know, he shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, and, you know, don't do this and don't do that. It should say, what are we trying to achieve here, and just use normal, natural language that people understand, and get the people that bring the collaboration to you to explain it in normal words, and then put that down. So then you've got this starting point. What are we actually trying to do here? Where do we really want it to go? And then underneath that, you do the kind of lawyerly bit, which is, well, actually, what if this doesn't quite work out? And have you thought about this? And who's going to own what? And where's the money going to go? But always start with the ambition. No,
I think that's a lovely way. And thank you for turning my slightly negative question into a positive. I didn't mean it to be. So thank you very much. Well, I think now we've had a lot of questions in the chat. So Mandy, I'm going to hand back to you. And there's been a flurry of things going on in there. So if I can hand back to you and ask some questions from the attendees.
Yeah, definitely. And also perhaps maybe in the interest of time, if I summarize some of the chat and comments that have been going on, and then if anyone has a specific question that they'd like to add around that, then we can pull you out and ask that. So just because it's easiest to sort of do it in order. So wheeling back to Sally, really talking about maybe collaboration does happen best in an office, whereas concentration happens better alone, and the feeling that it's quite transactional over Zoom. I get to that. So to make it less transactional, definitely bring your hot chocolate with you into the office. So if there's anything specific that people want to add around that, then please do. And I think that the feeling in the chat was definitely we are all missing that softer approach. And that micro connectivity that doesn't happen when you're not able to literally brush shoulders with someone. So then moving, Andrew really talking about defining the problem, the purpose, the shared goal, but bring in an open mind. If you want collaboration, you have to approach it with an open mind, and I think we've heard lots of examples of that as well. Then a bit more of a question, I guess, as to how we make collaboration more effective over technology when we can't be face to face. So Rebecca Cobbs was saying, how do we create those water cooler moments? How do we create that hot chocolate moment? And Michael Vihan was suggesting that we maybe just have open mic Zooms where the Zoom is on and people can interact if they want to, but there's no particular agenda to that. Drew was, 98.7% turnout to an online event is probably unheard of, but as Ben said, we're kind of all fighting the common enemy, so that's sort of bringing us together. But really highlighting that we're probably in this for the long haul. So how do we, really look at collaboration over competition? And that was a great example of how you've done that, Drew. So Rosie Hawkins pulled out one of the comments that Mark said, which was totally stand out for me, and I'd also written it down, and that was the takeaway that some of our biggest collaborations should actually be with our clients. And Mark was demonstrating that, and I thought that was really standout comment to take away. Thanks, Rosie. How do we, using alongside collaboration, it's about better communication and better efficiencies in the business. And Ben kind of gave an example of we have time now to breathe, so we have been able to perhaps be more efficient than we've ever been able to be before. Ben really drew out resilience. It's like, yeah, we have survived. And genuinely, I don't think any of us probably thought that we could survive this long without proper income, but those peaks and troughs. And James highlighting the more human side. And James, you'll be really pleased to know that nobody's bashing the banker. You were heavily praised for, lots of banks were praised for what they've done during lockdown. Alan, this is a topic maybe for another time. So Alan Wolvett, talking about the health and safety perspective and how collaborations with clients in the health and safety sector actually spilled out into lots of other areas. So we, as I said at the beginning, we don't have time to do this deep dive, but if there's appetite, we'd love to do more, another live collaboration where we do look into sectors. And Alan, that would be really interesting to pick up on a bit more what you meant from the health and safety point of view. And then really, really important point that was echoed in the chat from Matthew Dunn about how if you don't set the right purpose and shared values and objectives for your collaboration, then they just tend to fizzle out. And I think maybe that was something that I learned. So I've heard lots of people saying, oh, we did this collaboration, didn't really work out. We did that and we were together for a few months and it didn't really work out. So it's having that real definition of what does success look like, as Barbara picked up, and defining the objective, as Sally re-echoed, so that you hopefully don't have to resort to the contract, but yeah, do make sure you have one in place. So we literally have 2 minutes yet left. Now I can see some Sally's inviting us all to the Science Park after the 2nd of December for hot chocolate. Do we get a hot toddy? Do we get a brandy in with that one? That's what I want to know. This is really worth reading out, actually, from Richard. For the last 15 years with my own clients, I use a letter of expectation to bolster our agreement of what we intend to achieve. So rather than a contract, it then becomes a living document that we all refer to. And then a positive, yeah, we need to all make sure we speak to each of our partners to ensure we have the right attitude and mindset, and feeling very positive about 2021. So that's really, really, really interesting. We are respectful of everyone's time. We don't want this to overrun, but what we would love to do is be able to take some of these insights and maybe run another live collaboration where we break out into sectors. We could create breakout rooms and have conversation amongst sectors, or a deeper dive into a specific topic that we've maybe highlighted today. So if there's appetite for that, please do let us know. I think we put it in the beginning, and maybe we can pop it here at the end. Our LinkedIn, if you're not already connected with us on LinkedIn, this is very much an open mic, two-way conversation that we've perhaps just started today. So massive, massive thank yous to our panelists.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Who literally dropped everything and went, oh, not really, I'm really quite busy, but yes, thank you so much. Please, we would genuinely love to pick up conversations and continue with answering questions. We have planned a next live for the 16th of December, Wednesday the 16th of December. So we'll invite people to register for that And if there's anything else you want to add, Annabelle, otherwise it's just thank you from me.
No, I just want to say a massive thank you, like you've said, to all the panelists. Thank you for being available and coming on board on a really short notice. So thank you so much. Thank you to all the attendees that have come and really joined in and made our first session, I hope, interesting for all of you. So thank you very much, and we hope that you can join us next time on Wednesday the 16th of December.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Guys, take care.
Bye.